Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I'm proud to stand and talk about the Appropriation Bills 23-24. And I'd like to acknowledge the Treasurer, the Assistant Treasurer, and of course their teams for the tireless work on yet another excellent Labor budget. Of course, Acting Speaker, this is our first post-COVID era budget, and it's a budget for education, for transport and for health, and where we're making jobs for Victorians along the way. Of course, we're providing what Victorians need now, and we are planning for the future. The Andrews Labor government is delivering for Victoria, and this budget is a fine demonstration of that. And Acting Speaker, I'm very proud to remind the House that we are funding every election commitment that we made leading up to the DanSlide last year. And of course, as I say, I remind you again, that's every single election commitment, and I think that's an amazing effort to be able to do that in such circumstances of where things are with the economy. Acting Speaker, this budget recognises that my electorate of Melton is one of the fastest growing electorates in the state, and through this budget we are supporting our future generations. And of course, initiatives like Free Kinder, which is something I've always been passionate about, and every child deserves the best start, no matter what and where they live or their family circumstances. And of course, our government, the Andrews Labor government, is dedicated to the move to pre-prep, providing 30 hours of play-based learning by 2032. And I was at Aspire Early Learning Centre only about 2 weeks ago to participate in their Reconciliation Action Plan Day, and it was fantastic. And I commend and thank Stephanie, the person that runs Aspire there, and all of her staff, her committed staff, for the work that they do with regard to that early learning centre, and also for their commitment to the Reconciliation Action Plan. Looking towards our schools in Melton, the Melton South Primary School, the Toolan Vale and District Primary School, the Kurrajong Secondary College are all receiving funding towards their planned upgrades, and we made commitments prior to the election to upgrade all three of those schools, and I should say that they desperately need it, but the planning will commence as soon as possible to start that process. Of course, Acting Speaker, I'm delighted to tell you about the big school at Melton, the Melton Secondary College, and an excellent local school it is, with vastly growing enrolments, and they deserve, like all of our schools, world-class facilities, and that's why we're providing $8.87 million to rebuild their Block T and to provide them a rugby pitch. And I'll come back to the importance of that rugby pitch later in regard to what that delivers for the students that have taken up rugby through the Rugby Academy at the Melton Secondary College, and what it's meant to them. It's changed their life just in the last 18 months to 2 years since that's been going. Of course, our senior secondary education is about developing and realising every student's potential. Not all pathways to VCE completion are the same, and education is a complex, and in a lot of cases it needs to be tailored to the student, which is why we can be very proud that Melton Secondary College and their students of taking different pathways and the reforms of that to allow them to do so. And that all comes about out of the Firth Review in 2020. And I commend the Minister for Education and indeed the Department for the incredible work they've done and in such a short time for their oversight, and represent some of the biggest changes seen in this area in over 30 years since the inception of the VCE system. Of course, I'll come back to that Rugby Academy as I briefly touched on before, and through the partnership with the Melbourne Rebels, Tim Condon, who's one of the teachers there, and his team at Melton Secondary College have developed a Rugby Academy. And I think previously it was developed out at Fountain Gate Secondary School. And this has been an amazing concept to engage with Pacific Islander kids, and not just Pacific Islander kids, but about 80% of them are from the Pacific Islands, or their parents are, to strengthen their engagement with academia through the sport of rugby. And it's been an amazing outcome for those students, and the results for their academic achievements has just gone through the roof. It's incredible. And their engagement through the rugby and their competitiveness, and some of them gone on to the Melbourne Rebels boys and girls, not just the boys. So it's a great achievement. And I know that the Melbourne Rebels were in here a couple of weeks ago talking about the Rugby Academy and trying to expand it to other schools. And if any other members are interested in that program, I encourage you to get involved, because it's been fantastic for those kids and those families and for the schools. And it's changed lives, that's right. Acting Speaker, the Melton Secondary College, it's a school where we can be very proud of, and the previous principal, Mr David Reynolds, had a lot to do with the growth of the school, and I should say, and I commend him, he retired at the end of last year's school year, and David was there for many, many years, and he was a fantastic principal. And now the new principal, Catherine Sobey, has also noted a higher percentage of Year 12 completions because of the Rugby Academy. And these are wonderful outcomes that benefits all of the school, the kids, and Victoria in the longer term, and it's fantastic for us. As I said, it allows for boys and girls to participate. And again, and he was here a couple of weeks ago, I want to thank Jimmy Orange for setting up this program, the hard work that he's done through the Melbourne Rebels. It's a great initiative. It's transformative for our community and many other communities that will take this on. And I just say game on, Rebels, and congratulations to them. Of course, in the budget there were many other things about additional schools, and Andrew's Labor government is funding $169 million to help cover the cost of school excursions, camps, sporting activities for students in need. And we know how important it is for a school year to have these events. And $105 million to continue school breakfast programs, affordable school uniforms and glasses for kids. Again, essential items. And if feeding a child is not important before they start a school day's work, then I don't know what is. We're ensuring that no child misses out. We are making sure that kids can go on camps and excursions, that they don't need to miss out on important educational pieces because of difficult financial situations at home. Of course, continuing to talk about schools, we can talk about independent and Catholic schools. And we have some in Melton, and in the budget, obviously, we've set aside $450 million towards building and upgrading low-fee independent and Catholic schools. And this budget will see $5 million go towards the delivery of another part of the campus at St Lawrence of Brindisi Primary School in Weir Views. And it's a fantastic Catholic school. I was down there last year prior to the election. A beautiful school, but this will add another part of the campus down there. Of course, Al Iman College, one of our Islamic schools in Melton, another great school. I think have about 1,200 students. I've been to the last two VCE awards presentations. Amazing. As I say, about 1,200 students. Big future in Melton, big growing community. They'll be receiving, or what the government has done is allocated $400,000 for the necessary work on their school crossing, being funded by the Department of Transport. And I thank the Minister at the table for his assistance in this. The community down there organised a petition. We went down and visited the site. Clearly there's a requirement for a school crossing. It's a really busy road, Rees Road. There's definitely a requirement for a school crossing of some form, and obviously the Department of Transport will have a look at that with the view of planning towards installing a crossing at a later date. But the community are so excited about that because at times, at the school times, it's almost kamikaze to try and get people across the road. And it's probably been a bit astounding that there hasn't been some pedestrians hit prior to this, and let's keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't happen. TAFE, another thing that I'm passionate about, and my earlier days in education, which I never thought I would do, but I went on to Year 12 to a TAFE college after spending 5 years at a tech school thinking I was going to end up being a plumber. Got talked into going on to do, in those days, we'll call it Year 12, but the equivalent of Year 12 at Footscray TAFE. It was probably one of the greatest years I ever had at school. We had a bit of fun on the way through, let me tell you. It wasn't just about education. So, but I've got to say, the budget has allocated $55 million to work on our new TAFE campus in Melton and supporting around 600 students. And initially, those students will be for the construction industry, which is clearly what we need with what's going on around this state with all the construction. And it gives, students an opportunity to learn skills and that can be utilised within that construction industry and hopefully around the Melton area. There's massive construction going on, and as you know, we've got the new hospital coming, as I said, the TAFE College, some schools that are being built, level crossing removals. So there's plenty of construction happening in Melton outside of residential construction. And of course, we're supporting our trade apprentices by providing free motor vehicle registration and allowing them this essential means of transporting themselves and their gear to their jobs. And we know how important that is for young tradies in their utes, because I don't think a tradie has anything but a ute. So they carry their tools and things like that. And of course, this is, Acting Speaker, this is going to save the tradies, their apprentices, about $865 a year, and that's massive to a young apprentice. Of saving that much, and I'm sure they'll put the $865 to good use. Probably put wider tyres or wider wheels on the ute or whatever. But anyway, it's their money to spend. So, and of course, the other thing in regard to schools was we're really excited about establishing 3 beacon schools across the state to teach Punjabi and Hindi VCE language program. And of course, according to the 2021 census, Melton has over 5,000 Punjabi speakers and almost 1,200 Hindi speakers throughout our electorate. I'm sure there's probably more than that now, obviously, since 2021 because of the growth in the area. And I know my local Indian communities have requested the teaching of their languages, even at school levels. And one of our kindergartens in Melton is teaching Punjabi to kindergarten students, which is amazing. And they're picking it up at the youngest age, at 3 and 4 years of age, and it's just incredible. And it's really important that culturally the kids learn the language of their culture and they continue to pass it on. And as we grow so rapidly in my area, and I'm sure in other areas of the West with all the multicultural communities, it's really important to have your kids learn their language. And I think it's important that us Anglo-Saxons should start to learn some of that language, because I know in a few years' time in Melton, we are going to be the minority. And if we don't learn and understand other languages, in particular Indian language in my community, I'm going to be left behind. I'm not going to know what they're talking about or what they're doing. Yes, we'll get to know their culture, but we certainly won't understand some of the things that they're talking about. And in a way, it's nice, that reversal. I mean, they've come into our country and not understood us a lot, so it's fantastic that the shoe's on the other foot now, and about time we had to pick up our game, I think. So, I've been on my feet a number of times in regard to the multicultural events and the community groups that we have in my electorate, and I'm so proud to have such a broad multicultural, diverse multicultural community in Melton. And as a boy growing up in Braybrook 55 years ago, if you ever dreamt that Melton was going to be such a multicultural community, you would be absolutely kidding yourself. It is so diverse. And as I say, where I was born and bred, it was all Anglo-Saxon back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s. The Vietnamese started to come in the 70s and things like that, and then we had the other ethnic groups coming through. No doubt there were Italians and Greeks and things like that previously, but not so much in the western suburbs there. But Melton was an outlying country town back in those days, and it was all Anglo-Saxon. But we're supporting, South Sudanese, Somali, Afghan young people and their families by continuing to have community support groups to tackle with disengagement, not just in my electorate, but in the inner west. And we've all encountered those problems. So these appropriation bills are very important. It's great delivery for items in Melton, and I commend the bill to the House.